All right, it is 6 o'clock. I will now call to order the February 10th, 2014 meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items? Moving along. Public hearings, a continuation of the notice of intent for 8 Old Stagecoach Road, Gerald R. and Judith A. LaPointe. We discussed this at our last meeting and continued pending natural heritage tracking number and comments under the Wetlands Protection Act. We don't have those yet. There are no representatives here at tonight's meeting, but we still cannot close. So we will continue this to our February 24th meeting at 6 p.m. Actually, no, Jerry did go back and said she wouldn't be here. So we will, without delay, move on to a request for amended order of conditions filed by the City of Easthampton, regarding the Pleasant Street Mill Revitalization Project, Mass DEP file number 151273, to address water and sewer line modifications.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Shall I set the table, or you can keep things in mind?
Wherever you'd like.
Yeah, just to keep from taking the signing sheet, I'll just set up over here. Maybe you can see a little better.
And I think I failed to say it. We are being recorded.
Start again. Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is John Cutter from our Lebeck Associates. Here tonight on behalf of the Mill Revitalization Project that we discussed back in December with some of the modifications that are planning to take place to the approved order of conditions. I'll take just a moment and consider some procedural information. So this is the notification affidavit. Yes.
Great.
Hard copy for your records, as well as plan distribution on that as well.
Excellent.
What we're here to talk about tonight, the meat and potatoes of it, is the extension of the proposed water line. Formerly under the original order of conditions, or the one that's in place, so I should say, the work was planned to go from really the vicinity of Millside Park on down to the end of the Eastworks property, parcel 107, as you see here. Subsequent to that point, we've conducted some design revisions in conjunction with the City of Easthampton. So we are extending the water main connection from the Eastworks property down alongside the rail trail and then hopping off towards the terminus of Mechanic Street. This is about a grand total of 1,100 or so linear feet of water main work in addition to what was originally approved, and only about 450 linear feet of that is within conservation jurisdiction. The jurisdictional concerns for this particular portion are going to be essentially Lower Mill Pond and BBW areas associated therewith. To be clear, we are not proposing any changes to the delineation that was approved prior to that notice of intent of roughly a year ago. So it's just changes to the scope of work that we'll be examining tonight. In addition to, if you will, this section, we do have a revised easterly terminus to the water main connection. A few minor changes in vicinity to other areas that might be of concern to the conservation. We'll go through those as well. And Mr. Grisha is here tonight to help just develop a dialogue on a sewer improvement that's going to be taking place towards the western side of the Eastworks property. I'll show you on the plans where that's looking to take place, and a small amount of additional disturbance within the 100-foot buffer zone to Lower Mill Pond. Bear with me for just a minute. We'll begin at the westerly jurisdictional area of work. This would be the existing auto body shop that's in place and one of the National Wovens properties off of Mechanic Street. This is essentially the terminus of Mechanic Street as it passes between these two buildings. The jurisdictional area begins up in this vicinity to Lower Mill Pond, where our connection passes into the 100-foot buffer zone. This work on, if you will, the westerly end of the proposed area, is strictly limited to water main improvements. We've got about 9 foot or so, give or take, distance between the edge of the existing bike path and our erosion and sedimentation controls. It's about 9 feet total between the two, figuring that they're going to be used the paving surface for certainly some of their spoils and staging and backfill operations. We do have erosion controls proposed on both sides of the bike path for that very reason, and in that there are some depressions between this National Wovens building off of Pleasant Street and Putnam Court and the bike path is up. That's where the depressions are. And then, of course, for downgrading areas closer to Millside Pond, we have another row of erosion control barriers.
How far off the edge of the pavement will the proposed trench be?
On center, it's supposed to be about 5 feet. That's the way we have planned to design.
You want to be able to dig it without disturbing pavement.
That's our intent.
Without going too far up.
So, I'm sorry, the intent is to avoid disturbing any of the pavement for the bike path in that area?
That's correct. There's going to be disturbance as we cross it, for sure, but the idea is to leave the remainder of the path intact, and to minimize as much clearing as possible as necessary on that northern side of the bike path. Traveling eastward into the property, we go from the Mechanic Street area up towards this would be the Eastworks building, is the westerly end of it, where we formerly had our terminus. Under current design drawings, the water main makes its connection in this area. Some minor grading and surface improvements on the full build out of this project will also be conducted in the vicinity to allow for pedestrian passage from this area between National Wovens and Eastworks down to the bike path. What's significant about these particular areas in this project is that it's slated to be conducted in 2 phases. Essentially, the first phase is strictly for the major utility work, which in this case is electrical work, which travels down Putnam Court within this vicinity to connect with the rest of the project and connects over on Ferry Street, and then of course the water line work that we're talking about, that is the major drive for this amended request. What's important about the 2-phase aspect is that oftentimes a condition of approval will be that erosion controls must be in place prior to the start of work, if you allow me to paraphrase. In this particular case, phase 1 being strictly limited to utility work, we have a lot of linear erosion controls along the southerly side of the bike path, as well as areas that are intended for the full build out of this project when surface improvements, and the retaining walls and so on and so forth are scheduled to take place. So what we are showing on the plans in a few areas are phase 1 erosion controls to help the commission understand when they're out on the site what they should expect to see and what should be in place to protect the resource areas. In this particular scenario, we are showing, if you will, a length of the erosion control on the southerly side of the bike path, and this jagged line right here represents what happens on the northerly side. Again, to protect some of those depressions north of the bike path between that and the National Wovens building. That's the only area on this particular sheet. The remainder of the work that you see here, including some of the wetland replication areas, basins, so on and so forth, all that remains unchanged from the original file.
So phase 1 is the water main electrical work. Phase 2 is the remainder of the work.
Phase 2, we received funding for $1.5 million. The grant that we submitted was for $3 million, so we're not going to be able to do the full build out under the next phase of work. What we'll probably end up just doing is the parking. And the rest of the improvements we probably don't have money for. The retaining wall and the parking is what will be the next phase.
So some of that those little park areas and whatnot.
We don't have money for right now.
Will there be a 3rd phase at some point?
Maybe.
So, sorry, I need to catch up on the phasing discussion then. So, under what phase will the BBW impacts occur?
So that happens under phase 2, and to build upon our dialogue that we're having right now, a portion of this work is likely to be undertaken in phase 2. When those surface improvements take place, that's when we're going to be looking at the BBW fill scenario towards the easterly side of the site. We'll get to in just a second. And this, of course, is associated directly with that,
Okay.
in addition to the stormwater runoff infiltration concerns associated with expanding the parking area. So a portion of it, I wouldn't expect, if you will, what we hope for in all the design fuel components, the features out there outside of the nuts and bolts stormwater aspect to be constructed under phase 2 at this point.
Including the wetland replication areas?
I'm sorry, I'm not being clear.
That's the part I'm most
Wetland
concerned about
replication?
because they need to go together.
Yes, wetland replication and the stormwater improvements themselves, that would expect to be part of phase 2. Perhaps the
Okay.
trails, the gathering nodes, the arbor spice, so on and so forth, are likely to be cut for the time being
Okay.
for a hopeful phase 3.
Say that last part again. Well, I just want to get it for the minutes.
Yes, gathering nodes.
Gathering nodes. Is that actually what? Okay. I missed that phrase. I want to make sure I get that right.
That was the phrase that stuck with me. It's a nice term.
Did you go to landscape architecture school?
No, I didn't. Clearly, did not.
Doesn't find either one of us. This is beating our heads from
Sounds like
day
a
one.
health problem.
While I'm on this sheet right here, I hope I'm dragging that too long. I'll also talk about a little bit of work that the city is proposing in conjunction with Eastworks, as related to some rather intense sewer issues and in conjunction with the building improvements that are ongoing for the property. We have essentially a sewer, shall I say, a bypass. Essentially, we're looking to, let's start that all over again. We have 2 sewer mains that traverse the majority of these properties. One that is north of the bike path and one south of the bike path. Within a portion of the phase 2 work, we do pick up some properties to the east of this location into a new sewer to connect to the newer sewer main that's down on the southerly side of the bike path. In this particular scenario, what's being added is essentially a connection to an existing sewer line where they will change the connection from the northerly sewer to a series of manholes and connecting to a sewer manhole in the trunk line south of the bike path.
And it's just that zigzag you're showing there.
Just this portion right here
Okay.
was being proposed new for sewer. A net difference in the area of disturbance, we're looking at something in the vicinity of maybe 500 square feet from what was originally shown on our design drawings. Don't know the linear footage offhand of the sewer replacement, however, the work south of the rail trail, it's roughly 20 feet or so.
Okay.
To make that connection.
Back up for a second. So
Sure.
new connection to the southerly sewer from the northerly sewer, and the reason for that is because of sewer backups?
We've had some, we've discovered some issues with, first of all, the northerly trunk line that runs parallel with the bike path right behind the mills was installed when the mills were new. So it's pretty old. It's over 100 years, close to 100 years old. Stanley Home Products owned the Eastworks building. There was some things that occurred, and they're showing up now. So we have to reconnect would be the westerly end of the building. We take it off of the old trunk line and put it on the new trunk line. Because of all the build-up over the old trunk line, it's pretty tough to replace that. So and plus the new trunk lines are much bigger, modern pipe.
And it increases the impact, did you say 400 to 500 square feet?
I'll get a more accurate figure for you if you'd like. I've got 450 square feet of additional disturbance.
Square feet, okay.
And roughly 20 feet south of the bike path to that existing sewer manhole.
And that's just buffer zone.
That's correct.
Okay.
We'll continue our eastward journey through the mill, between the Eastworks property, Sullivan, Kepper, Ronmar, heading over towards the utility structure as part of Pinchel and real estate. No particular significant changes within this vicinity until we get over towards this area, where we can see we have our proposed water main coming down and now crossing the bike path for connection over in Millside Park. This area is new disturbance. I'll flip over the next sheet in just a quick second and just to iterate. We can see the contours in this particular area. Anyone who's in the backside knows that this existing parking area is above the grade of the bike path. This is where that transition takes place. Under phase 1, there's an amount of fill that needs to be brought in to support some of the infrastructure that's taking place in this vicinity as this makes its transition from this elevation up here down to the elevation of Millside Park. So phase 1 erosion controls, essentially represented by this line right here, to offer protection against erosion sedimentation related to what is strictly that fill material right there. I do have a copy of the phase 1 plans if it helps us to roll those out and just take a look at what that erosion and sedimentation controls are related to versus the full build out.
Is there more erosion and sedimentation on the southern side of the bike path?
Under
Water main?
yes, essentially for
that area.
For that area of the new work to be proposed, in addition to that component up there.
Is it shown?
I mean, I see a silt fence line here, but this is labeled as phase 2.
Right, that's going in. Is that going into space too? That part of the water main?
Because then there's this here that kind of crosses it.
Maybe I should take out the
Maybe.
phase 1. Nevertheless, that's something that should be part of the phase 1 work. If you want me to take a look at the next page and see, I see my call-outs are straddling 2 sheets where we're looking right now. Appreciate your careful eye and your question. These erosion controls, I can assert, are part of phase 1 work. However, they are not called out as such on this particular plan. But you are correct in that the area disturbance for the water main on the southerly side of the bike path does need that, if you will, U-shaped area of erosion sedimentation controls. In addition to that, north of the bike path to handle the graded area.
And that call-out distinction needs to be made on sheets W-2 revision A and W-3 revision A?
I think it's prudent for us to do it on both sheets, yes.
Okay. Great. So that can happen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
What we're looking at for additional disturbance down in this vicinity, bear with me for 1 second if I come from there. I believe we're looking at about 2,400 square feet of additional disturbance.
2,400 square feet?
That's right.
In the buffer zone.
In the buffer zone. And that is within an area that is currently lawn area. The last revision that is of any particular concern, I'm sorry, raise your hand, is the grading adjacent to this area of existing BBW. The area that's shown within here is essentially set in stone from our original order of conditions as to how much of this is to be filled, how much of it is to be replicated elsewhere. So what we are doing is holding the toe of this slope. With some greater detail acquired subsequent to the original filing, as well as refinement of the design in this area, the grading has tightened up within about 1,600 square feet of the slope between the parking area and this basin. It's tightened up to a point where this hatching shows that the area needs to be, covered with riprap for slope protection and to protect this wetland area. As it impacts conservation concerns, we did originally have plantings around this, we'll call it a swale, or it's a wetland area, but it is a collector of sorts of storm water. So what we have done is we have not changed the number of proposed plantings out there. We've redistributed them just in a more dense pattern around this this swale and wetland area, so as to not lessen the benefits that we're trying to provide.
So basically, the restoration plan list is the same, just where they are and the plan has changed.
That's correct. And with that, I apologize for my long-windedness, but I wanted to make sure we covered the areas that have changed, and in case anybody here wasn't present for the original order of conditions. Open to any questions, if you so desire.
What's the time frame on this start?
Phase 1 is scheduled to start this spring. We'll say as soon as ground conditions permit, they're looking to begin the work out there.
Jim, questions, comments? You said your piece about the sewer? Jess? All right. So I think with the exception of the supplementally revised sheets to clarify the phasing on the silt fence, I don't have any further questions. Okay.
I do have a question, more of a clarification. The wetlands that need to get replicated that you'll be doing in phase 2, where is that happening?
These hatched areas, this would be on our original dialogue about what would happen south of the rail trail in this aspect of reduced funding for phase 2. This is the area that we were examining.
That's correct.
But it's the hatched areas that represent wetland replication.
Right.
These other basins are for stormwater management.
Yep.
So essentially, the grading surrounding these areas and certainly the surface area of replication areas needs to remain intact for any of the work associated with the full build-out or the build-out of impervious surfaces for this project.
So that confuses me. Or maybe it's just semantics, but that tells me that you are constructing it. Am I not grasping that?
I think perhaps what some of the confusion revolves around is this segmented aspect and looking to proceed with the original order conditions and a single set of plans with the project divided in two, and we'll leave the notion of any changes to phase 2 out of this for the moment. Let's look at this just as the phase 1 for utilities and phase 2 for the remainder of the improvement.
Okay.
So when this project goes to construction for the remainder of surface improvements,
Yes.
when we have any parking areas, any change in the impervious area, and certainly any filling of the wetlands out there, then these components must be part of that work.
So at this point, ultimately, as a commission, we are just approving phase 1?
No, we're approving the whole, we have already approved the whole project.
Right.
We are,
Now we're amending it.
right, we're amending it to include, the whole project to include the westerly water main, the easterly water main.
Yes. The new sewer connection.
The new sewer connection and the revised
modified
grading
basin.
around between the parking and the wetland.
So it doesn't-
The first set of plans that you approved was not the fully designed
Sure.
out set. It was a preliminary design. And since that time, the project has gone an incredible amount of detailed design work since then. And so this is the revised set of plans based on the designs. We had to work with Wamiko for their utility needs and their design needs need to be taken. So this
Sure.
is just a much more detailed plan, so I
No, I
think-
get all that.
Okay.
The only thing I'm just unsure about is if those don't get constructed in the subsequent phase, do we then not have wetland replicated?
Well, my understanding is that the replication and the stormwater improvements happen when those impacts occur.
Yes,
It's just
which is
that,
it's phase 2.
right, it's just that they won't get made fully attractive into,
Yeah. Right, there's not
public
going to be
spaces
benches
until sometime down the line.
and sculptures and stuff. That's not
There won't be
$1.5
bike
million
racks
worth
and
of
trash
work.
cans and benches.
Right.
Yeah.
But can we do it all with that without getting that 1.5 million? That seems like a lot of money we don't have yet.
That's an answer, I don't have an answer to that yet.
Yeah.
We're still, right now, we're trying to get this first phase off the ground. And we haven't had time yet to sit down as a team to review what can we do with this $1.5 million that we've been given by the state. So
Understood.
we need to process
So once
that out.
once you have that discussion, whenever that is, in a year, 6
Sure.
months, whenever, then you might come back again for another amended order of regulations to figure out how
We might have to.
Might have to.
Yeah,
It is
modify the
absolutely.
project again.
The
Okay.
changes are speculation at this point.
Okay, I just want to understand the process.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, would anyone, with the understanding that I don't have paperwork for us, would anyone like to make a motion?
Do we have to wait, is there a process with an amended? You don't have to wait for 30 days or whatever?
No, this didn't go to National Heritage anyway. It's just like a filing, regular old. So they place the ad in paper, they notify the voters, no one showed up, except the people who were talking about the project,
Okay.
so.
We'll move to issue an amended order of conditions for the project with the changes noted.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. So you will get me the revised plan sheets.
Yes, ma'am.
Electronically, full size to Jess's office, but electronically PDF is fine.
Terrific.
And then our next meeting is the 24th, and we'll take care of the paperwork.
That's great.
And should I just give the
Just
original
be, yeah,
to
John
Jess?
doesn't need to show up.
So you'll just get a yeah, no, you don't need to show up.
As much as I enjoy your company, I'll take the opportunity.
We'll save you,
Save them
we'll
when
save
you're
you sitting.
Thank you all for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you, appreciate the explanations. You're all set too, Jim?
Good.
Thank you.
Have a good one, Justin.
Is there anything you want to share about the intersection while you're here? Common Road intersection? Nothing going on.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
still waiting to hear if the house is gonna get torn down. I mean, when it's gonna get torn down.
Okay.
Other than that, they're just on hold till probably
Can you just lean that up in the corner?
I'll pack my box for belongings.
Oh, sure, you can do that. Feel free, thank you.
Yeah, shoot, this seems like gold.
It's true. Okay, so moving right along. We have no request for certificates of compliance. We have no enforcement orders to discuss. And let's just quickly run through the open permits after the project so that we can get on to the things to
Fish ladder.
Oh, do you want
Jim,
to
do you
comment
wanna
on the fish
comment on
ladder?
that?
You're here.
It's essentially done.
Just waiting.
Yeah, there's some cosmetic things with metal, and nothing on the ground, paving's done, nothing. Fences are up, everything's done. But it's getting delayed till spring, till they finish up, till we can break the ice out of the baffles and then do some adjustments. Not good.
Great. So you'll be coming for a certificate of compliance after that?
Probably, yeah.
Probably.
Somebody tries me. No, Fish and Wildlife will certainly keep us on our toes on that.
Great. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, Paul Street Extension, nothing happening.
updates.
Been quiet down there. As far as I know.
Just so you know, they've requested for planning board the release of 2 more lots of the subdivision, so I kindly reminded them that they do need to pay you a visit before they do anything, especially if they want to put on decks or anything like that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, no,
I think they learned their lesson last
free
time.
card on that one.
I did remind them that before they build, to pay you a visit.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. Savings Bank, nothing till spring. Well, we just got our update on Pleasant Street Mills.
Yep.
I emailed Garrett. I have not heard back from him about a certificate of compliance. And Jim updated us on the intersection. So, Jay, do you have a copy of the?
No.
Sorry.
So can we switch this around just a little bit?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
I think we should talk about the shared conservation agent thing first, because that may impact
Agreed.
the discussion on the budget.
Yep.
Okay. So, I'll just give this to you, I have one copy. This is the scope of services that we are getting from PVPC. This is Southampton's, this is ours, they're essentially the same. But that's what they're gonna be doing as part of the feasibility study.
So when you say that this is a proposal that was submitted to both cities and then what we share it somehow?
Yeah, so the idea is that we're gonna, there's a feasibility study that PVPC is gonna do to determine whether it's possible for the town of Southampton and the city of Easthampton to share a conservation agent, depending on what our needs are. And so this is being funded out of a state grant called District Local Technical Assistance. It's the same funding source that we use for the open space plan.
Okay.
There's a component of this funding that focuses on regionalization, so there's always opportunities for regionalization projects. And so it's just a feasibility study. It's not committing us to anything. They're just going to be taking a look at finances, what our needs are, and determining, trying to come up with a plan of a way for us to do this. And I think that ultimately there would be even a drafted memorandum of understanding that they'll be providing as part of the packet if we wanted to move forward. So I don't have any information as of yet. There's going to be 2 staff working on it. They did email me this week with this document, and I informed them that I would be the main point of contact for Easthampton at this point, but I highly recommended that one of the staff come and talk to you directly about what you believe you need for a conservation agent so that they can hear it from you, not me. So we should be hearing from them, I would say, within the next couple weeks. We should put them on the agenda and have a discussion about what you need out of an agent and what you're looking for.
Based on what you know of the staff available, do you know who might be tasked with this?
It's their new regional services person. I think his name is Josh. I can't remember his last name, sorry, he's new, but like a couple months new. And then there's a staff person from the land use section. Her name is Jamie, and she'll be the support staff on the project, I guess, to Josh. Okay, so you at least have an understanding of...
So we don't have to do anything, there's no action for us, it's just kind of...
You don't have to do anything at this point. It's their scope of work and it's their work to do, but we need to make ourselves available. We'll get a better report if we are honest and tell them what we need.
Yeah, and then the in-kind, the match here, it comes from our budget, or?
It's not even, it's an in-kind match, so it's not even a budget, it's time. So whatever amount of time that I need to provide, I put in a ton of hours on the open space plan, and that was more than sufficient match for last year. So I'm happy to use my staff time as an in-kind match.
Okay.
Yeah.
More than you do already.
So I don't know what it would cost, essentially at this point, but they will give us numbers when this report is done, and they have to be done by December. That's part of the grant rules. They have to get it done within the calendar year. So.
Should we just put a 0 on the end of our budget request to start asking for more?
Well, I mean, that's sort of, I think, let's move over to the budget request. So, there's a couple, before we even get to that part, I noticed that, and I actually got a notification so I can find it now.
And to go in about 5 minutes.
Our cost for the membership dues went up. So I have the number somewhere. Of course, I can't put my fingers on it.
291?
It's more than that. It's like 3 something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they sent me a notice. I thought I stuck it in this file a long time ago. It was like one of the first pieces of paper I got, and it seems not to be in here now. So I'll have to find that piece of paper, but I know what the membership dues number is going to be for the next fiscal year. So.
Oh, 370. Yeah.
Wait, what did we pay this, yeah?
Yeah, 374.
So that's what it's gonna be for next year.
Okay. I got a different budget for here.
That's, yeah.
In
That's
addition to what
the
you get. This
expense
is-
report
yeah.
from this current fiscal year, so it would be reflected in that.
Yep.
So that's increased. So the question is, traditionally Kelly had this $100 stipend for mileage that none of you have touched at all this past year. So I think at this point, if you do not intend in using it for our mileage, I think we use that as a reserve for whatever conservation agent might happen. Best case scenario, we get a report in December, or that's worst case scenario, but fiscal year doesn't start till July. So we probably aren't going to have a report by July. I can't imagine. Maybe we would, but I think that would be optimistic. So if we get it by December, which is their drop dead deadline, that means that 6 months of the fiscal year is already sort of passed. So, there wouldn't be, say we wanted to, try to spend $10,000 a year on a conservation agent. We would really only need $5,000 for next fiscal year. But again, until we have a report in hand, I don't know what the cost is going to be. And a lot of it's going to be dependent on how many hours they work, if they become a benefit employee because they hit that 20...
Oh my gosh, I just realized this is a study to see if we need to actually do it. I thought this was actually going to be, someone was going to come in and be a shared conservation agent for us for the year between Easthampton and us. This is just to actually do a study to see how we would do it.
How it would work. How many hours...
I was all excited about having it. I was like, maybe go and do those assessments that we were supposed to do. I already had things that...
Well, those are the things that you need to tell the person who's doing this report of exactly what do we need, and then how many hours is it going to take somebody to do that work?
Right.
Do we feel like, if it ends up looking like we need a full-time conservation agent, then a shared situation isn't going to work for us. We need to figure out what's going to work, and what do we have the money for? It's, local aid is down, and we're not getting as much from the state as we got last year, so it's really hard to establish new positions in the city. So doing something in a shared agreement where there's less costs involved with the benefits.
More cost sharing,
Yeah, more cost sharing.
Agreed
So,
completely.
but no, we're not going to have anything in place. Probably best case scenario, like
next year.
in a year,
Yeah.
if the numbers all work out.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess if a report comes in December, then we'll be no better for budget season next year. Yeah.
So for this year, we wouldn't.
Yeah.
So I still think that you reserve that $1,200 because it's once you release money out of your budget, it's really hard to get it back. So it's almost better to just sort of, I think, keep it in there.
Definitely.
And hope that there's a reason to spend it. That things come together in January next year. There's a reason to start pulling from that amount of money.
Yeah.
That's really hard to say.
I'm fine with holding it.
So for the minutes, you said that $100 for mileage stipend could be used as a...
We could just shift it to another category.
Eventually, if we end up getting a Conservation Commission agent.
Where does that show up in here? Where does that show up in the...
It's the first line item, the 1,200.
Oh.
It says purchase of services, I think. I don't know what it says on the expense. Hold on. You have the expense report, so I don't have it.
Purchase of services, yeah.
Here it is, I have an old one. Yeah, purchase of services is the first line item.
And that's the $1,200
Yep,
in there?
that's
Oh,
the
okay.
1,200.
I thought we were talking about 100 for some reason.
Well, it was $100 a month.
Oh, I
You got
get
$100 a month.
you. I get you.
Yep.
Okay.
Not to be too nitpicky, but our postage budget is only $50.
You want to request to up that?
Yeah.
What do we actually use?
Well, actual 2012 was 65. But we had no actual 2013 number. Yeah. Does that show up on the expense?
It doesn't look like we use any on the...
Well, it's, what happens is that planning department
Absorbs.
basically absorbs it, and we put it into our account, so we do all of your mailing for you out of the planning department account.
So,
So we do the same thing with the planning board, ZBA, so whatever money they reserve, we put it into our planning
Okay.
board account. So we're actually getting, we'll be getting a printout of what we expended planning department postage-wise, pretty shortly.
Oh, okay.
So I might be able to,
get a better idea. Because I know we can say, we don't have to send things certified to DEP, but I'm not comfortable sending things, original copies, or things that we need to demonstrate that we've actually sent.
Yep.
Such as a partial certificate of compliance for Treehouse Lot 37.
right. And each of those costs about $7.
Yeah, no, it's not
No, it's
cheap.
not, yeah.
So if you feel like you need to up your postage, by all means. I mean, if you want to up it to 150, I mean, let's think about this.
100.
How many, you probably do 2 a meeting, right? 2 applications a meeting?
That's a good average, too. So 15, 30 times 12, 360. Is that right?
Dollars?
Class, whose calculator can tell me? Did I do that right in my head?
I can't.
Because
Probably did, but I'm going to check it anyway.
really that wasn't my strong suit. No. B. Right.
So what did you say, 15 times?
30. No, sorry, 30 times 12.
And so $30 you're saying? Because it's
30 a month.
say $7 a posting times 4 postings.
That is 360.
Postal
Times 12
postings.
months.
That's got to be high. I mean, a lot of times
That's
we just hand, we
That's
sign
true.
it here and
It's
then.
true. So,
200?
2. Yeah, that's not fair. Because I don't want to start digging into your resources. It
Thank you, I appreciate
should be realistic to a certain extent.
So, let's see. Okay. And then the dues and the memberships are going to be $374. Now, what about education and training? There's $300 in the account. I don't think you've spent anything this year.
So let's keep it at 300.
Let's keep it, yeah.
That seems reasonable.
Seems reasonable.
Are you going to use it? That's on farther on the agenda, right?
Well, we should. I mean, the thing is, Peter used to go to a lot of training, so we used the budget that way, but since he's left, we haven't really done much training. We should.
I should probably go to training myself, actually.
Yeah, you can.
Absolutely.
Want to go to a vernal pool workshop?
Yeah.
Friday, May 16th?
Sure. Am I outside? I get to be outside.
That's for vernal pool time.
I know, but it's not like an inside workshop.
Yeah.
No,
It's out in the
I think
field.
it's out in the field.
Okay, that sounds more fun.
You bring a vernal pool in.
That would kind of.
It can be outside, you never know, you know?
That's true.
Remote out, bring it inside.
It was one that I got, I think I forwarded the email about that.
Yeah, that's
And
what-
it's one that I would like to go to as like a refresher, so.
Well, there are 2 conferences coming up that you want to talk about later on.
Yeah.
right? So,
But
maybe somebody should think about going to
yeah.
spend the money. Because if it goes too many years with nobody spending the money, then it gets taken away.
Yeah.
So
Just as long as our fees aren't absorbed into a general fund, I'm okay.
we're okay with that now. That's been all cleared up.
Yeah.
Okay.
$300, that could be just one training. So like,
It could be,
It's really-
yeah, it's not
yeah.
a ton of money.
yeah, it's not.
But, okay, is there anything else on here? Supplies?
Can we just round that up to 50? And we may not need it, but.
Don't we have a printer and a camera or something like that? Or
We have, well, they've,
If we have, I have never seen them in the
I don't know.
years that I've been on this commission.
we did have a camera. I don't know what happened to it. I didn't have possession of it.
yeah, I've only heard of such things. I've actually physically seen such things.
But we all have
Jesus.
cameras on our phones now, so
It's true.
Yeah, it's
That's
more
right.
that we
Yeah,
have
you
a
don't need a
resource than
camera.
we
it.
don't need a camera anymore.
But I thought we had a printer, like a color one.
We had a laptop.
We had a laptop, it just.
Blew up.
I reloaded the operating system
Yeah.
on it. It was running, I guess.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. But it's kind of a lump. And you're more comfortable with your own equipment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
I got a printer. I swear I got a printer. I haven't thought about that in ages.
I can't remember who researched it. Peter, maybe?
Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, but I don't know the
Yeah.
specifics. Okay, so.
Okay, so that's that, right? Anything else that you guys can think of?
No.
And then on the flip side, on the back side of your sheet was the other half, which is the consultant professional services, which was zeroed out because that was the funding that was getting taken from the wetlands fees
Okay.
and put into the general fund, and then when it wasn't, it was being put into,
Okay.
remember this whole debacle? And then when it wasn't being used, it was being absorbed back into the general fund again. So we just said, no can do. If you guys want to access your wetlands money, there's a different process for that.
Right.
We're not going to put it in as a line item. So I'm just going to zero this out and
That's fine.
keep it that
I
way.
mean, I'd rather go through a slightly different process than
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Plus, there are relatively few circumstances I can imagine where we would.
We're all professionals who do this. I mean, if there was ever a time where it was really a committee of volunteers who don't do this on a daily basis, they might access
So we have
this.
no excuses for getting it wrong. Thank you.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what you're saying. It's okay.
That's why I call you 6 times a day.
Every day.
Okay.
Jay, I think you're the only one who's gone out to a property.
Yeah, I've got 2 of them. But she should look at them and see.
Yeah, definitely.
EDA forms, look at those
Yes,
2,
great.
tell me.
Thank
you did both yours, or you are such an overachiever.
You're just jealous.
I totally am. I'm so envious.
You guys have a lot to live up to.
I know.
Apps and everything.
So,
maybe we
you
should
did the
do it.
Gustina property before. What was the one you just did? Or just
The one off of West Street.
How was the poison ivy?
No problem right now. You can't get through that.
You've got oh, is that down by Bassett Brook?
Yes.
That
I
is,
don't know, down by West Street.
yeah, that is,
Off of West Street.
What's it called?
that is
What's it
not
called?
going to be touched.
Massive amounts of poison ivy.
And multi-flower rose,
Yes.
I would imagine. And probably some oriental bittersweet growing over top
West
of it
Street
all.
APR Trail.
There's supposed to be a trail down there.
Well,
Oh, that's a trail of tears.
Further back.
the easement trail runs the boundary.
Right.
So it's like not even.
It's not even practical down there.
Not close to West Street.
No, I mean,
But
that's
the back where
basically,
it connects to other properties, it's probably more
Echodale?
accessible, yeah.
so that connects to Echodale,
Yes, it
right?
does.
And he's supposed to, for Echodale, aren't they supposed to maintain a mode path around the perimeter for walking?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think
I think this
there
is the
was-
one that has. Maybe it might.
There was an
I can't
easement,
remember.
then I think it was just that I think my recollection is that a path was never established, but it was a possibility.
I guess I thought it
Right
was.
now, you can't see with snow, it's hard to see what the
Yeah.
real trails are.
Well, down by West Street, there's never been anything.
No, there's no
that I
access
can
really.
think of. No. No.
This is so fabulous. Can you send it to me in electronic
Yeah.
format?
Of course.
It's supposed to make it a screensaver.
Well, just read that and think.
Just look at it all day.
They're asking all these stupid questions, and it's like,
Happy place.
It's so clean.
Well, it'd just be easier for me to put into a.
Yeah.
look, read the answers because it's no and NA on everything.
That's okay. But I think that's okay.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, it's because you assessed it, you returned it
But
back.
if you have any recommendations of how it can become more accessible, then that would be great.
Llamas giving people rides.
Llama rides. Nice.
Yeah.
That location especially,
Yeah.
it's floodplain and steep side slopes,
Right.
and it's all riverfront area.
There's no
That's
parking.
perennial stream.
On
Plus,
West Street,
there's no shoulder on West Street, so
Yeah.
that's not an access point unless people are accessing by foot or we get an easement on the adjacent property where they're dumping.
Yeah, the backside's the only way to.
Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, it's that's where it would be beneficial to know what the intent of that acquisition in terms of public access was like when they started the discussion.
Right, because we weren't
Oh.
here when they were acquiring this property. Okay.
Okay, so we need,
Great.
we all need to get it.
Yeah.
The MACC Annual Environmental Conference, Saturday, March 1st. I will not be around.
I think I need to run. But
Okay,
I won't.
fine.
See you.
Yeah.
For having me. It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
So MACC conference, I
Well, we've done.
circulate, I won't be around.
Yeah.
You've been before.
Yeah, a couple times.
I think the one where maybe there's a greater benefit to the commission as a whole, kind of filling our gaps, is the Land Conservation Conference, which is a little bit later in March. And I think I had sent an email
Right.
link
No, look
to
at that again. Yeah, look at that.
Should I go to the environmental conference?
You could, why don't you look at the maccweb.org?
Go there, yeah.
Yeah, and just check out the
Agenda.
training sessions, the
Okay.
offerings.
All right.
Check it out. Okay. I've just gone to it for so many years that
Let's check my schedule to see if it's.
the offerings, they do try to bring new ones in, but it doesn't
Right.
change year to year.
Okay. Might be good for me though.
Yeah.
That would, yeah.
I have time too, but I don't really need to go. So I think you would benefit from more.
Okay. And I know Jane and Judith have gone to ACC. Okay. And then, meeting minutes approval. Maybe Dan shouldn't have gone. But we three were here, so we can do this.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 27th.
Can I second it as the meeting minutes person? I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay. Anything else? Was there any mail?
I gave you one.
That was it?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Nothing else? No other business?
Then I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second
All those
motion.
in favor? So moved.
It's 6:52. It's the exact same time it was last.